What's up, y'all? This is Neena Perez, and this is Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. And I know that you are here to listen to the best humans on the planet to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. Let's do this. So when I speak to people who are doing things that are going to help you just improve and be better, that's the kind of people I love having on here. So I found Doug C. Brown for you. He is the CEO of CEO Sales and the creator of CEO Sales Strategy Academy. And he trains people and companies on how to achieve sales success at the top 1% globally. So hello, how are you, Doug? Because let me tell you, sales, everybody is always so intimidated with sales, right? And so I think what you're teaching people is going to be super sweet for the people who are listening, because a lot of my audience are entrepreneurs and leaders and stuff. So welcome, Doug, to Straight Talk. How are you?
Oh, Neena, thanks. I'm great, actually. Thanks for having me here. I'm so grateful to be here.
I'm great. I'm grateful that you're here. I believe we got introduced by Eric, and Eric is amazing. Twigs, I believe, right?
Yes.
So he's a good dude. So I'm like, if he is a good dude, I'm sure you're a good dude. So Doug, tell me a little bit about you. Like, who are you, Doug? Why are we listening to Doug? What's going on here?
Who am I? Well, that's a great question. Who am I, really, right?
Right.
No, well, from a business perspective, I now have, this is going to sound crazy. I feel like I'm getting old. I now have 58 years doing business. Since crazy, huh? Right.
You don't even look 58 years old. But did you start right out the womb, or what's going on?
Yeah, pretty much. At the age of 3, I actually started working in business. I worked for my dad's company at the age of 3.
I love it.
I'm 61, and I swept floors for 25 cents a week. And by age 5.5, or 5 3/4, I should say.
I love it.
They put us out in front of clientele, and they were like, "Go sell, right? We'll help you, but go write orders." My dad had an electric motor and machinery repair, commercial business, repairing industrial equipment. So I was just a little 5.5-year-old kid that's out there, and what stuck with me was,
I love that.
Yeah, it was great. Now, my dad died kind of young, so I never had the chance. I never asked him. I said, Dad, did you do this for low cost labor, or did you do this to teach us, right? Because they're all 4 of my brothers were there as well, and there was about 14 people in the company total. And I remember I was just a little kid, and I would be writing these orders and asking questions, and my grandparents were there, and my dad was there, and some of the other people that were employees were there helping me. And what stuck with me, Neena, was I would take a part back then for some type of, like, maybe electric motor or something. And we'd pay $3 for it, but I'd sell it for $6. And I remember I was getting 50 cents an hour back then. And I remember I sold 10 parts in a day. And I remember thinking, my gosh, that's $60, but 30 of it is kind of profit, right? In my little brain, right. Back then I didn't realize about overhead so much, but it was like, okay, so it's $30, but I worked 8 hours and I got $4. So I could either make $30 by selling something, or $4 by working. Yeah. So wow, that's when I started thinking, man, this leverage thing, which I didn't even know what it was back then. This is a good deal. If I sell 20 of these things, I can make $60 in a day versus, 4. So then I started, figuring out, how do I sell one part, then another part, like multiple parts, like, combined selling, if you will, for cross selling. And okay, well, if I could do that, maybe I can sell them a capacitor or something and charge, $15 that we paid $7.50, and I make more, so it was all this like stuff. So by the time
smart.
Yeah. By the time I was 10 years old, I used to go to school from 8 in the morning, basically, and get out of school by 11 o'clock in the morning, and then go work for my dad's business. And, then I started saying, okay, well, what else can I do? And so I started, like, taking other jobs that I could take. And The first one I could get was because I was only, 10 years old. I couldn't get a paper route back then because I wasn't old enough. So I persuaded my brothers to give up their paperwork, their paper route, and then go out and get other paper routes. And what we would do is we'd started all these paper routes around it. And I would actually either deliver the papers or I would go find other kids in the neighborhood to deliver the papers.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And then I'd kind of take the cut right off the top. And I was like, okay, so now we get tips. So that's a form of sales. So, we do a really bang up job. And, if somebody's, I don't know, their plant fell over, we'd knock on the door and go, hey, I straightened your plant, whatever, it to make a little bit more money. And I just kept progressing from there. And I started businesses when I was young. Got my first bank loan at 13. I persuaded my second oldest brother to actually co-sign a loan for me. And, it just kept going from there. So I worked for my dad until I was about 19 years old. My dad decided to, sell the business out. Actually close it at that point and sell the assets. And so, all my friends and everybody in my family, except one, was always in the military. So I went into the military at that point. And then when I came out of there, I went into college. And, because what the heck, you got to get an education, right? You can't be anything without an education, so to speak. So I did. I got a couple of college degrees. And then when I got out of school, I couldn't find a job. I had degrees in biology and nuclear medicine. And I got a hospital offered me emergency call. And when I was in there, I realized while I was going to college, I was selling music equipment. And I was selling music equipment to a lot of the bands, maybe Neena, you might have listened to, and I listened to when we, growing up, bands like Aerosmith and Boston, Eagles. And, I was hanging out with all those guys and gals, from the band. I remember Till Tuesday, I had a song called Voices Carry back then. And I was like, my gosh, I'm making more money selling music equipment than I was in the hospital making. And I remember it being kind of like this come to, the light conversation with myself. What are you doing? Like, you got all these degrees, but you have all this loan debt. And so why don't I try selling for a living? And because I didn't even realize when I was selling music equipment, I was actually doing sales. Dad, I was doing it. Right? So from there, I got a job for a telecommunications company, and I became a major account executive for this company. I don't know why they hired me. I was good at the interview, I guess. I sold myself in, but I really didn't have a lot of telecommunications experience. So I bought 3 telecommunications engineering books and read them over the weekend to kind of figure out what I was doing.
Okay.
And but I didn't know how to sell. Because selling is just communication with people. So I knew how to do that. And I became their top selling representative in the company. In the first year. And, I tripled my money that I was going to make in nuclear medicine in my first year.
Wow.
So I just never looked back. And then I just kept training to get better. And then it was like, okay, I want to just get better and better and better, and then help other people do the same thing. And that's pretty much what I've been doing for the remainder of my life.
What's interesting about your story too is, well, there's a few things. There's a lot there, right? So like the first thing is I love the fact that your dad really just instilled that in you, right? From when you were little, because you could have been out there, just on your tricycle or something, but he decided to give you something that still serves you for life, which is so freaking cool, right? Yeah. I love that. What's really interesting to me is I think if you would have went to school for sales, you probably wouldn't have been so good at it. Sometimes it's, it's that not that going to school for sales is a bad thing. So I want to, justify that. But what I'm saying is that it's almost like you learning to do the communication is really what helped. Right. Yes. Like really like having that bond with people, getting along with people, because it sounds to me like it wasn't pressure for you, especially like when you were doing it for college, right? You had an idea of what you were going to do with college and what you were going to do out of college, yet you were selling things for fun and to make money.
Yeah.
Right. So I think people take where I'm going is that I think people take sales so scary. They think sales is such a scary thing and that they can't do it. Right.
Yes.
But I think with somebody mentoring you or teaching you the right way, it's not so scary. Do you agree with that?
I do. I mean, to some people, it'll feel like bungee jumping, for the
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah.
And for some people, it'll be like, oh, just, we're walking in the park for the first time. Right. So that just a lot of what I've learned over the years is it depends on how somebody kind of grew up, really, when it comes, because we all have these, experiences in childhood that shape us. Right. I mean, and I remember, and I've done the same with my daughters. I have 2 daughters, and I basically kind of plunged them into the world of business immediately, right? And I was bringing them to all the big events that I was doing, whether it was Tony Robbins event I was doing, or Chet Holmes. I remember we had Chet wrote a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine, and I was Chet's president of training and sales for his company at that time, and we went out to dinner, and he was playing quarter games with the girls. They were only like 5 years old, right? 6 years old. But he was teaching them, if I give you this quarter and, you are able to leverage this quarter by, asking me questions and answering these questions, then you make more money. I mean, it was a really cool game that he was teaching them. And, I agree with you. I think there's nothing that replaces experience. Now, there's nothing wrong with books and Booksmart, and, especially if you're going to do something, we want to get a foundation. But, when I learned in the medical field, you could study all you want, and we did. But the first time someone had a heart attack, I worked in nuclear medicine, so we did what was called nuclear cardiology, and we would do stress tests, and it was basically stressing the heart to see if the heart was okay. And I remember the first time the man collapsed and fell to the floor, and we had to revive him. And nothing in a book prepares you for that.
Right.
Nothing,
right.
And what did prepare me for that, though, was the military, because I had friends who got hurt and this and that. So it wasn't a complete shock, but it was hard. But nothing in a book could ever prepare you for that. And I don't think in selling, you can read all the closes and read all of the, ways of handling this situation and say that and say this, which I don't like that type of training anyways, because it gets people into trouble. I think it's really one of those things that we've got to get out there and practice, but practice in a safe environment.
Right.
And because I don't know many human beings, including myself, who like to be rejected. And that's, I think, part of the thing that knocks people out of selling. But if you think about it, those of us who are listening to this, you've been selling your whole life. Children are the best salespeople in the world.
They really are.
They
really are.
I was just talking with a friend of mine I'm actually his client. I have a software startup company that we're doing, and he's the development company. He was telling me about his son, Fabian. Now they live in Poland, and in Poland, the dollar in Poland is worth less than it is in the euro, right? Which is also in Europe. It's about $4.50. And Fabian had a loose tooth, and he's just a young kid. And so they were like, his tooth was wiggly, and they said, well, if you when it gets more wiggly, if you pull it out yourself, then we'll pay you 5 zloty, and that's like $5 Polish. And Fabian, in his child mind, said, okay, well, we're going on a trip to Spain, and he knew that. And so what he said to his father, he said, well, Dad, if I wait and go to Spain and I pull it out there, can I get €5?
I love that.
So
yeah, he's gonna be something. He's gonna be something when he gets older, boy. That's smart.
Yeah, and the thing, And I was laughing at that as well. And I was like, man, but children are so much like that.
Yeah.
They're an open book, right?
It's
And then,
practical. It's just practical.
well, and
Yeah.
it's logical too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's logical as well
Yeah.
as all. And I think the thing is what happens is we grow up in an environment. And I grew up in a very kind of entrepreneurial environment, not only my dad, but my mom was a kind of a very successful Avon woman,
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know what Avon is, this cosmetic company that women, primarily women, used to go and sell cosmetics
That's
and
right. My
skincare
mom
products.
did it.
My mom was a nurse and she used to do it, but she used to exceed her nursing income actually selling Avon.
Wow.
And I remember.
Hey there, my amazing community of straight talkers. I just wanted to give a quick announcement because I wanted to introduce you to a transformative life coaching program that I have made exclusively for women. I want them to break free from shame and embrace their true potential so that they can build that life and business that they have always wanted. Now, our transformational coaching will guide you. We will help you. We will uncover your passion, your goals, and will develop your roadmap to success. Visit me at neenaperez.com and you can join an amazing community of women that are on the same trajectory as you, because I want you to create that life and business you deserve and transcend that shame and unwanted behaviors. So don't wait any longer. Visit neenaperez.com and let's embark on this journey together. Now back to the show.
I would go home from school, come home, do my homework, and then my mom had to go out and do her Avon stuff. So I would ride with her, and I remember, helping her put all these little tiny lipsticks in bags and things like that. But and then we'd go see the ladies, and they buy more stuff. And I remember writing back then you wrote orders on a carbon paper pad, and then at the end, she would total it all up, and then we'd figure out what the price was that she was paying for Avon from Avon. And then we look at it and we go, okay, this is what we keep. Right?
That's
And
awesome.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
But that's in-home kind of training, I guess, for what I was doing. But children, I mean, Dan Pink wrote a great book. It's called To Sell As Human. And he's basically making the point. We're always selling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if a person goes out on a date, they're selling. They had to sell to get the date.
Yeah. We do it every day, right? When we get dressed up, when I put on my makeup, when we wear certain clothes, we're selling the way we appear all the time. So Doug, so how do you take all of that, because you have a lot of experience and you have an amazing resume, right? So you have all the stuff that you've done throughout your life and these big companies that you've helped and all of that. So how do you now implement that for like entrepreneurs or business owners or, people that want to learn? How do they learn from you? What is that tactic you use there?
Yeah. So, I mean, we teach people how to be in the top 1% of sales earners, how to think and act that way. Whether they choose to be in the top 1%, that's an individual choice, right?
Right.
But we teach them how to do that. And there's sales. I don't want to sound arrogant or braggadocious, but I don't think we've ever had someone not improve their sales, right? Because it's just a different level of implementation, way of thinking and acting. The first place, what I've learned over life is a lot of people will say, I want this goal, right? So when you ask them, where do you want to be in 12 months? They go, oh my gosh, I want to be at the top of the mountain, right?
Right.
And what I've learned is let's find out what the top of the mountain truthfully is. So that's the first place. Where do you really, and I would challenge anybody listening to this, whether it's now or after this, get clear on that point. Have total clarity on, I want to achieve this at a minimum. As people say, there can be a stretch goal, but what is the minimum thing that has to happen? So if you're earning, I don't know, $125,000 a year and you want to be at 250 because you want to double your business. So you want to be at, 250 and you want to be at 500 or whatever you want to do, or maybe you just want to raise it by 10%. I used to have that goal every year, Neena. I would just raise my income by 10%.
That's awesome.
And what happens is when you do that and you're truthful about it, you not one has to learn how to do that, but you'll get when you're working with somebody who can teach you that, which I had the benefit of, you don't grow by 10%. You might grow by 10% year one, but then the next year you grow by 35%.
Right.
So that's the first place to start. What is the truthful goal? Because then we can build a plan, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
whatever somebody's selling, let's say it's an average, we'll just make it very easy. Let's say it's an average of $10,000. They're selling that, and they want to grow their base by $100,000. They want to get another $100,000. Well, we need 10 new clients.
Right.
Then we can build a plan off of that on how to achieve that. And we teach a lot of what we call leverage, because you only have so many hours in a day. So how do you actually get far more leverage in that process? And as we're doing that, generally what happens is their base that they currently have today, or what they've been doing, their close rate goes up, their all the metrics go up. And so what happens is they create more money, and sometimes they actually work less hours than they were doing in the first place because of that leverage.
Right. Now, are you teaching this like in like a course format, or are you teaching this like one-on-one? Or tell me a little bit about your method.
Yeah, well, I didn't know I had a method. I really didn't in the beginning. I discovered I had the method. So when I was the president of Chet Holmes' company for training and sales, firstly, I was a coach for him. And I quickly became his number one producing coach. I didn't know how to coach, quite frankly.
Right.
And I never took a coaching class. But in the first 4 months, I was generating $65,000 a month in coaching sales for him.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Not surprised, Doug.
Well,
You've been doing this since you were out the womb. I'm not shocked at all.
Well, there was one other factor that I didn't really know at the time, but I know now, is I viewed coaching as what it is, which is the business of client acquisition. Mm-hmm. A lot of people view coaching as, I'm a coach, so I'm selling coaching. But I always looked at it as, if I can't get the client, then I can't deliver the coaching. Right. So we would talk about their problems and the opportunities and what they were looking to achieve, and we would monetize that and figure out the plan of how to do that. And then I could supply the coaching after. And, it's not hard when we teach this and what we do. If you monetize something to a point where somebody goes, my God, that's, $5 million. And you go, well, would you like to spend $60,000 to acquire that?
Right.
They don't go, oh no, I don't want to do that. Right. I mean, it's kind of,
right.
So, but once I got there, then, Chet came to me and he was like, what the heck are you doing? Because all those other coaches weren't doing that. So I said, well, I'm doing this. He said, well, why don't you help the sales division? Would you do that? And I said, sure. And, so I did. And right around then, Tony Robbins had come into the company. He bought into the company. So essentially I became, Tony's president of training and sales for the business divisions as well. And I looked at all the numbers and the metrics and started doing what I'm doing. And their close rate went from 17.8% to 43.2% across their whole presenting team.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that turned into literally tens of millions of dollars.
That's
right? So
awesome. Yeah.
So then he asked me to take another division, and I did the same thing with his front end sales division. I think the close rate was 12 something. And that went to almost 22%. So we had the front end, the middle end, and now the back end he asked me to also do. And so I started kind of figuring out, there's something to this, right? Because you can't have 3 successes in a row. Then the head of coaching came to me and said, will you teach what you're doing in coaching? And I did. And their average order went up from $1,500 a month for 6 months to I think it was $2,500 a month for 12 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's how I learned, okay, I got a process. And then, so I started like teaching it to people and just continue to do that and build upon that over life. And I've always looked at people who are much what I consider better than I am. And I was always that student that would go out and go, I'm not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree. Let me see what the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree is actually doing. And then I would be like, oh, well, it's not really off much, but they're doing this little piece. So I would incorporate it. So over the years, that's what I did. And I honed it
Right.
into a system.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. I know that people who are listening right now are like, okay, we need you, Doug. We need you, right? Because there's so many, a lot of things are saturated out there, right? And I think people are starting to get a little bit disheartened, a little discouraged about, we'll go with coaching because that's what I do as well. But like the coaching industry, for instance, is very saturated, right? And so, not that it's impossible to grow, but people still feel like, oh, there's too many, forget it. And they don't realize that there is an art to it. There is an art to sales, right? There is an art. You can be, I think you also should be, not only know the art of it and how to actually do it, but also be ethical, right? Be somebody who comes with integrity and, being ethical because, you shouldn't be selling something you actually can't deliver. So I'm really, really glad that you came on to talk about this and also about, that you have a system, because I'm sure that people who are listening are like, okay, Doug, what is the system? Where do we go? How do we find you? So I'm going to have you give us that nitty gritty. Like, how do people get to work with you or get their hands on being a part of the system so that they can grow their business?
Well, there's a few ways of doing this. We're rolling out what I call the 1% Academy. So again, I was working with companies and doing this primarily, and then some individuals, right? Or some CEOs or owners of businesses or whatever, and teaching them that. And my wife actually was instrumental, and she came to me and she said, you got to teach this to everyone. Like this is, and because she was a coach. In fact,
agreed.
She was my client actually. So I ended up marrying my client.
That's awesome.
And so I told her that was probably my best sales ability ever.
Right.
So we started what we call the 1% Academy, which I'm rolling out in the fourth quarter of this year. So I've got a couple of resources for that. One, I have written an ebook that actually just was done yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So can I give that away?
Yes, please. Okay. Yes.
If they go to www.ceosalesstrategies.com and they then put in /1PE. So one Paul Echo, it stands for 1% ebook. So ceosalesstrategies.com /1PE.
Is the one word or a letter?
Number. I'm sorry. Thank you for asking.
Number. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, it's so new. I didn't even remember to tell people that. So, and then if they want to get on the waiting list for the Academy, which is not going to come out till the fourth quarter of this year, but they'd like to get some information and they'd like to, stay in touch in that regard, they can go to ceosalesstrategies.com and then just / again, the number 1%. So 1%. And that will get them so they can jump onto the mailing list if they want. And if they want to reach out to me directly, by all means, send an email to YouMatter, YOUMATTER at ceosalesstrategies.com, because I have a team of people who picks up these emails and there it will get to me and I will respond to you. So
great.
Please do. And then I guess LinkedIn is Doug Brown 123 if they want to know more about me.
That's awesome, Doug. Thank you so much for being here. I love leaving my audience with amazing nuggets and things that they can utilize and, contact people. And, that's what I love about my audience actually, is that they do reach out to a lot of the guests on my show. And I love that. So thank you for pouring that knowledge in and for, developing something that, us as, coaches and entrepreneurs and all of us out there that are trying to make this happen can jump on. So I'm definitely going to go look at that ebook and I'm going to make sure I link that information. Do you have something else?
Thanks. Yeah. Can I sneak one more thing in for people? Because I think this is important for people. When you're looking about being a person who's great at sales, the reality is you can be really good at sales or just good at sales, but be an excellent master prospector. So the person who's able to be a really, the master prospector will always outsell the master closer. always happens, always has, that I've found. So what we do teach in the academy is not only just how to sell and convert, like how to handle the conversations, but how do you go get new business, right? Because, and do that as part of one system, because a lot of times marketing and sales gets disjointed, and that's part of the challenge on the conversion rates that people are looking for. So I wanted to sneak that in, Neena, because it's so important for people to understand that marketing and sales are not separate. They're one unified process, all to do one thing, which is to, do what you said, play win-win, not sell something you can't deliver, not be engaged in something that they lose and you win, or they win and you lose, right? It's really a relationship when it comes down to it.
Thank you so much. That's wisdom. Wisdom dropped for you guys. Thank you so much, Doug. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm really glad you came on Straight Talk. I appreciate you.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on here. I appreciate you. And again, I'm very grateful to be here. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's such a pleasure. Guys, make sure that you follow Doug. I'm going to link all of his information below and the new ebook that he just came out with. So you guys can at least start getting that ebook into you and reading everything, and put your name on that list so that when he does launch it and, come out with it, you're going to be getting, that information so that you can jump on and be, in the top 1%, right? Because that's what we want to do. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. You are the best. Okay. I have the best podcasting community ever. I really do. And I appreciate you guys being on here. Make sure you go on to winject.com/register, winject.com/register, and register for my free community, because I want to be really connected with you, and I want us to brainstorm and be with each other and connect in a deeper way. If you are looking for coaching, please make sure that you also email me at hello@straighttalknosugaradded.com. I work with women and I help them develop that business that they are envisioning in their hearts so that they can win. Thank you guys so much for being here. Love you, love you, love you. This is Neena Perez, Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Until next time.